Okay. Well, this is the lecture on, or the continuation of the lecture on mapping tools. In this one, we're only going to talk, only in quotation marks, only going to talk about geometry dashboard and basically all the hit sounding tools, all the 3 or 4. So we'll start with geometry dashboard, which is probably the most complicated one, but at the same time also one that can be maybe the most interesting. I haven't touched too much of it in my own mapping, but there is at least like a few options that are nice. So I think the most important thing of that tool is that if you start out using any of this, it's kind of pointless to just activate everything or use every single option. You kind of should just like limit your options a little bit. There's one single option which is probably useful for basically everyone, like, which is just where is it? See playfield. So if you can you see that box, Jordan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was under the settings. If I just click this button and then go apply, basically if I now open up this map, you can see this orange border. And that's going to show you when objects are off screen. So if I now make a slider and put it over here, you can see that this little portion over here is going to be off screen. So if there's enough, if you have no idea how to use any of this tool, at least you can now use this. And I think this actually works at any resolution. I might have to quickly change that and not full screen. Well, let's say I go this resolution. I have no idea what this resolution is. Where's the key again? B. Okay, so it just shows you the border of the entire screen. It only would work at full screen. That's a bit lame, but I mean,
Yeah,
at least something.
if you use it in borderless, it breaks.
Yeah, it might be possible to fix that in some way. But I'm not quite sure how. I've not really tested that out. Well, anyway. So besides that tool, basically there are a bunch of these options here, and all of them are going to be that if I activate some things, let's just randomly activate almost everything or something, there will appear those like lines, there will appear some points. If I have like a curved slider like this one or something, there can appear these red lines which are like curved and stuff. So the point of this tool is basically that all the basic options, so everything under the basic dropdown is creating so-called virtual objects. What a virtual object is basically, let's say I activate lines on linear sliders. Now you can see that whenever there's a straight slider, it's going to generate this like dotted line where the line of the slider is. So that is one of the types of virtual objects. Another one would be points, which are these guys. As you can see, they are on the anchors right now of the slider. So those two options were points on slider anchors and points on last anchor. Last anchor is going to be always this. The point is not going to be in the middle of the slider end, unless we select this option instead. Yeah, something like that.
Your mic's breaking right now.
Can you hear me now?
Well, still breaking.
What about now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So we talked about the points and the lines. Last one would be circles, which is just the one from earlier. If I have this circle here, it generates this red dotted line. And inside mapping tools, there are options to like change the colors and stuff. So if we press on the cogwheel on the settings, there are ways to change the colors of everything and how thick it is and whatever. You can test it out on your own. I just keep it on the defaults. It's whatever. So, besides those basic options, there's like always then a key, or there's a few keys. There's the M or the so-called snap key, which if I have, say, this line that's generated by the slider, if I now select the circle and press down M, it will snap it to this line, and then I can place it down. It's basically like if I press the M key down, it's kind of like distance snap almost. Right, when you toggle distance snap, it kind of functions in a similar way, where your object is like locked down to the distance defined by the thing up here. The only difference with the M key is that, as you can see, when I move it around a little bit, like jitters. So it's not perfect because it's not integrated into the game, literally, which it might be in Laser in the future.
I believe one
But
of the reasons for that as well might just simply be rounding.
yeah, I think that could be as well. So you can snap things to these lines and stuff. And obviously, one of the most useful, really, really basic options is probably just having the lines on sliders on. So you can then make placements exactly like this, where everything is in a line. Or something like that. That's like immediately the one of the more usable options I can imagine. Or like it's the most basic one. You can just make nice arrangements with this one. You can probably use it in an easy difficulty, in any kind of difficulty. That one's kind of useful. Where to continue? Besides that, there you can also do things like, so there's another key which I'm pressing sometimes, which is the refresh key. Basically, there's only going to appear a certain number of virtual objects on screen at a given point in time. So if I again put everything on, except for this option here with points on paths, there's going to be a bunch of objects appearing, but not everything. Even if I make the map AR0 or something like that. There does appear more objects, but like whenever I scroll around, there's still like the previous virtual objects there, as opposed to new ones. You basically have to press the refresh key, which for me is B, to make them reappear again. Now, right now it's looking kind of complicated, but again, that's only because I have basically every option enabled. If I disable them all again and just have lines on sliders, it's much less complicated looking. So those are some basic things about how that works. Besides that, there's also ways to lock certain things. So one thing I noticed that was also kind of useful. Say I want to do that thing where every slider in my map is even my more complex sliders are structured so that they are at like a specific kind of angle. Who joined? Last curve. Okay. So we were just talking about how they are in mapping tools so far. Under basic, there are these options that generate virtual objects, like lines on linear sliders, points, and circles, like these red thingies. And then you can press a key to refresh them, etc. So another useful kind of thing that I want to show was about the scenario you want to structure every slider on your map at specific angles, something you can do is, say this slider is like 5 degrees tilted. Can take these, copy paste them, rotate by 90. And now I would have like something like this. What you now can do with this, these lines that I have right here, in mapping tools, you can save these virtual objects. So you could basically make, you could even do things like make a grid with mapping tools, with the points or with the lines and stuff. You could make some kind of structure up on screen. And then you can save this, what should I call this? 5 degree. That's not even the right folder. It's whatever. 5 degree axis theory. I don't fucking know. Doesn't matter. So now I can save that, and obviously I can press this lock key up here. And now the objects a little grayed out, the virtual objects, the lines, but they will now stay whatever, no matter what I do. There can now be additional lines at the bottom here with like these other straight sliders or even points, but those lines are gonna stay. And I can like use this as like a visual reference for stuff, something like that. I think that might even have a map that's kind of a good example for that. Something like this. In this one, I think it was 20 degrees instead, but you might still kind of see the point. Actually, never mind. I have to like, change it. It's just gonna take a second. Oh. Oh, why is it not doing it? Is it because I pressed the lock key? Well, it's already. Sorry for that now. You have any idea what I'm doing? Oh, I did it. Okay, cool. So, lock. Yeah, now they're locked. As you can see, for example, I could use that in a section where I have a bunch of sliders to like structure them on this grid or something like that. Like this slider, etc. So that's one particular use, for example, I found for locking objects like these to use as a kind of visual reference. You don't have to use like lines in the middle. It could also be that you maybe make like say we have this map here, has a control A gimmick, right? Instead of having a background that has a triangle in it or something, you could like make some sliders like this. It's probably not going to be the most precise, but that doesn't matter. I don't care. See? And now the objects are locked. Now I could, without constantly pressing Control A, I could structure all the objects to have this kind of gimmick or whatever, to always see what's going on. Same could be done with points or whatever. You can make grids out of points. Whatever you can imagine. Doesn't really matter. You can do a bunch of stuff. So besides that, with the basic options, since they are generating these virtual objects, usually intermediate options are there to generate more objects based on selecting certain ones. But before we talk about this, I'll just break down every single basic one. So the first one is just points on slider anchors. So if I activate that one, I refresh, you can see on this big slider and then those two sliders, all the anchors have points on them. That should be kind of simple. Points on last anchor. Oh, refresh key. Kind of confused. It's already doing points on anchors. Whatever. So points on last anchor should theoretically speaking also be kind of obvious. It's just maybe if I deactivate that one and this one, I can now have just the points on the last anchor of a slider as opposed to the first anchor. Yeah.
Some of these options do seem kind of weird though.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
there's
the first one is just all of them, and the second one is just the last one.
I
I
don't
imagine there's some use cases for it.
I don't understand like surely points on slider ends would be why would someone ever use points on last anchor? It would always just be points on slider end. Because of course
Yeah,
the final slider anchor doesn't always have to be on the slider end. It can be like slightly extended. And because of the snapping of the map, the anchor kind of goes past the point. So it's kind of a little bit useless. At least I can't think of any use case for it to have it
yeah,
on anchors instead of ends.
yeah. So the points and slider anchors or last slider anchor, those are basically what Jordan is talking about. Those are the issue where unless you're like me and you control G every single slider you put down because you're a maniac, it's gonna create some issues. Now, at the bottom, there are these options which are instead points on slider ends and points on circles and slider heads. That's basically that option, but better. Except for it's not gonna capture more complex shapes like that one. It's not gonna capture the anchor. For that one, you would have to also enable this option that has all the slider anchors, which is gonna give you on this slider 2 points right here at the end, like the one that's on the actual slider end and the one that's on the last anchor.
Do you know, be
So I assume,
pretty cool as an option would be points on red anchors.
yeah, or just anchors in general. Wait, no.
No, just red anchors.
Yeah, just ray anchors. That could be useful. Maybe you could even do that in the settings of the setting or something. Doesn't seem like it, but whatever. You can suggest that to Ollie Bombi in his server. Jordan, do it right now. No, just kidding. I mean, I guess it depends on what you need. If you really need points on these red anchors or something, then you probably want to just do the thing that I'm doing where I press Control A on everything to have the slider anchor right in the middle. And then it basically would work just fine for you. But if you don't need points on red anchors, but you really need points on the slider ends, but you also do this thing where you have sliders like this, where the anchor is not perfectly in the slider middle, then you can just do these two options here. As a side note, the points on slider paths, that one generates, it kind of is also a workaround, but it generates a lot of points and not lines. So these are like individual points, just a bunch of them. That one is a bit weird. I guess it's kind of workaround it, but I feel like it would be really annoying to use this one. Yeah. Moving on, we have lines on sliders. Again, the one that I find kind of useful because you can just go circle, then next circle is in a line with the slider. And as we maybe know, objects being arranged in a line visually groups them together, and things being visually grouped together can look nice. Next one would be points on blanket centers. So let's imagine I have this epic cool slider here. What an amazing slider. And I want to put an object right here for because I'm dumb. I want to have a blanket on this big slider. Now, with this option enabled, there's this point here, and I can just snap the object right there. Oh, preferably not to be. So as you can see, it's like looks a little bit inaccurate, maybe. But if I save the map and reload, yeah, it's not like perfect, but I mean it gets the job done. Probably if you were doing this by hand, like manually moving the slider slightly around or something, you're not gonna get it much more perfect. It's just pointless. So if you use blankets a lot, then this option is probably kind of useful. Although it doesn't take into account how much the visual spacing is here. It just puts the anchor directly into the middle. But when you would be designing a map, you might have this case where, as you can see, the visual spacing between sliders here is always like this amount, roughly speaking. Well, I guess not this diff. Let's randomly go to my diff. Visual spacing between objects is always like this or this, which is like twice as much or something. Like this here again, blah 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 blah. Now, if I did the blanket and I make the slider a certain shape, sometimes, especially with bigger circle sizes, might happen that the visual spacing just looks off, or is like different from the visual spacing of everything else. Especially if you make wide curves like these. Rip. Obviously, this object, I mean, it looks nice on its own, but it doesn't really fit into the context of my map because the visual spacing here would be too much compared to here and here, blah blah blah. I mean, it also doesn't take distance snap into account. So those are just some things to think about when using the blanket one specifically. I almost feel like it's not worth using the blanket one unless you sort of work around it, I guess. You could probably learn using it, but I feel like it's kind of not that important. Moving on, circles and 3-point sliders. So if we find a 3-point slider, which we won't be able to in this map, sure, this one must have, yeah, let's see. So whenever there's curved sliders, specifically 3-point sliders, so if I put another anchor here, where now is the Bezier stuff, it will not recognize this curve anymore because it's not a 3-point slider. But with the 3-point ones, it will recognize it. It will create these circles. And now, one kind of use you could have for those circles is that it's probably not as obvious with these, but like with bigger ones or something, you could have something like, I don't know, want to put an object here, put it like where the curve is, implied curve of the slider is. Now, even though this is mathematically correct, it might still look visually wrong, to put it perfectly, where it is, like here. This is on the implied curve of the slider, but it still seems to look more like this would be better, or more actually that the slider would point into this direction rather than here, to me, just visually speaking. But this, still, you could probably use the big circles to range objects in some way. And even then, there are other things about the circles. Also, you could do stuff like arrange objects in a circle like this. You could maybe even make a map. Say we make a circle here. Wasn't there an option as well? Nope. We couldn't get to that one later, but whatever. For now, you can just put down a circle or something. B. Then you could lock this big circle or something and arrange objects around it. Maybe even get this circle, scale it a few times or something. Then you could make an entire map that's like arranged around this pattern or something. Could lock it. Now you could make a map that looks like that one handsome map. B. Where is it? This one. Yeah. You can make a map that basically is kind of like that with this tool more easily. Yeah, so those would be all the, or not, it's not all the basic ones, actually. Yeah, I think we went over all the basic options So the ones with the lines, with some circles and stuff. Now onto intermediate options. Most of the intermediate options are going to require that you already have some of the basic ones enabled. And then under settings, there is this key called the select key. So let's just go through them and then see how they work. When you hover over them, it gives you this tooltip. For example, this one says, take a pair of virtual lines and generate bisectors of the angles between those lines at the point of the intersection. I mean, bit of complicated math talk, but basically what this means is I have to enable lines on sliders or just lines on anything. Probably have to rotate this one by some amount. This is a amount. Maybe not this much, I don't know. And then with the N key, I could select both of these. Oh, it won't do much right now because I haven't enabled the option. I'm stupid. So I now enable this. Now it's created this additional line based on me selecting those two lines. And that one is going to be the bisector of the angles of the lines. I think an easier way of showing what this does would probably be to have like the slider like point here or something. So now if I select this one and this one, yeah, you can now see that at the point where they are bisecting, it like creates this offset cross, or like directly down the middle of this the angle of the two sliders. Maybe you could also do like this or something, so they are not like perfectly crossing. Yeah, it's like at the middle of the angle. So while this is like, say, I don't know, what kind of angle would this be, 60 degrees or something? These individually would be 30 degrees or something. So it's right down the middle. Now there would already be some ways in which we could arrange objects with this. Or like if we go later into the map. Probably not with the some lots of curve stuff. What?
What happens if you use this tool and give it multiple lines? Like more than two?
It will increase creating more bisectors.
Ah, okay.
So you could do like this. There's also under configure, or I don't know if it was under configure, but there's like options to there's like a limit to how often you can make it iterate on itself, but you can set that limit in the settings. I think I believe there are also some tools which have settings where you can like make it use itself as a reference or something, like it iterates on itself, but then at some points it will just stop, like because it can't keep on looping forever. So anyway, that's one tool you can use. Obviously, using it like this isn't going to be super useful. Like making thousands of lines, but if we go to a map like this, where there are already a bunch of sliders like these, something useful could be, let's say I have these two sliders and I want to put another ones, maybe not here. That's not a good example. I don't know. Oh yeah, let's say I have this slider and this slider up here. And this one doesn't exist yet. I can now select this one. I have to do this. And this one, and it will now show me where I could place the other one, or like that I could place something here or something, etc. Now, obviously, I already had that in this map because I was basically taking this slider, I was rotating it by, what was it, like some amount of degrees, 30 years. I don't remember, but I was like rotating the one by a certain amount, and then I just rotated it again by the same amount, copy pasted it, whatever. I could have also done that kind of exact thing with this tool, probably even a bit more precise, or like I could find out that these are not perfectly intersecting here. Put a circle here, but it actually is perfectly intersecting, stuff like that. Yeah, so there's probably some uses to it, but you would have to play around a little bit with that one. Next one would be average of 2 points. So it says, take a pair of virtual points and calculates the average of the points. So for that one, we need some stuff that has points down. Let's go points on slider anchors. And just select a few points, like select, do I have it enabled? Yes, I do. Select this point, select this point, and as you can see, it now created a point in the middle between these two. Most useful thing with that would probably be, there are a lot of cases that you could imagine. Hello? Bye. Where you have two circles, say, and you want to like put a circle right in the middle between these two. Now, one way of doing that would be you copy paste that, you scale it down by 50, then you place it here, then you delete this, and then you have the circle perfectly in the middle. That's one way of doing it. That's how I would do it. But now that we have the virtual points that I can't generate right now for some reason. Oh, I need to put it on circles. Okay. Hello, please refresh. It doesn't want to put, it doesn't like these objects. Now? Yeah, okay, now it works. So instead of doing what I just did with the scaling inside the editor, now I could just press select this one, will give me the point here. I press M. Oh, M, click. Yeah, and now I did the same thing basically. I could even keep iterating on it. I could press N again, and then I get these two circles, etc. Could probably even make streams with that. Say you put a circle here and you put a circle here, and you want to make a stream out of those two somehow. I could select them both and select this, select this, select this, select this. Now, again, there is like this limit right now of that one. So we would have to change something in the settings to be able to get more points in between these two circles. But that would be one thing we could do. I think there is even another tool that basically does what I just talked about, but more efficiently. Let's just move on to the next one. Average of 3 points. So kind of the same as we did just now, but instead of with 2 points, it's now 3 points. Now, one riddle would be, how, if I have these 3 objects, how do I find the middle of them? Is because basically a triangle, how do I find the middle of this? One way you could do it with some editor knowledge is Control C, Control V, you rotate this by 180, and then you take two opposing circles and you'd like scale it by 150. Where is it? There it is. And now you have the circle that's perfectly in the middle, mathematically speaking. It's not like, obviously the visual spacing is not consistent, but it wasn't an equilateral triangle in the first place, so it kind of makes sense that the object in the middle would be here. Now, instead of doing what I just did, I could now select this one, and now I have the point here. And I again could get a circle, hold down the snap key, click, done. Same applies for stuff like, say we have a polygon with 7 circles. Actually, it won't work on this one because it was bisectors of 3 points, not 7. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, now you can maybe already see use of that one. If you ever have 3 kind of objects and you want to have the next object be in the middle of them, that's a useful way to get that. I don't know. It's like these 3. Now I could put an object here. It's already mathematically related to these, and that in some cases will look nice. Are there any questions so far? Any questions?
Nope.
No?
Okay,
Nope.
good. Next next one would be tangent lines on circles. So this one needs pair of virtual circles and generates a line. So let's say we have, probably not in this section. So 3-point slider here. 3-point slider here. Activate the, where is it? Circles on 3-point sliders. So now I have these two circles. I can select the circles. What? I think it was something else actually. Let me read it again. Pair of virtual points.
Does it need to be a circle and a point?
Yeah, I think that was what it was actually. Let's test it again. Sometimes it, oh, I have to click this. Never mind. Okay. Let's try that. Yeah, it did it. So, as you can see, I have the circle and it creates the tangent, created those two lines based on the tangent between the point and the circle. What would be a good use case, realistic use case for that one?
It would be using it on the slider endpoint. You'd get a more natural exit out of the slider, like visually.
Slider end. Oh yeah, true. Whoa, where did I skip? Whatever. So would be I have the slider here, epic slider. I select the curve and then I select the point. I think that doesn't work because it's directly on the tangent of it. But if I, let's say, put a circle here or something, let's try that one out. Oh, it did generate a line. I'm stupid. Yeah. So it's like when you select the point here, it automatically creates a line. And that one, oh, I reset. Yeah, now, okay. And now I could arrange the slider in the way that I was talking earlier, but this one looks more visually implied because it's the actual tangent of the curve and not on the curve itself. So that one would basically be as about as useful as the lines on linear sliders thing, where if you constantly have patterns where you want to put the next object in some kind of implied motion after this one, you could use this tool. You could have the circles and on 3-point sliders, and then this option here enabled, and then this one. It's like a map that has a bunch of stuff like that. Any good examples, Jordan? A map that has like sliders that point into the next object.
I mean, you could just press F2.
So talk. Does that do it? Let's see. So, see, you could basically arrange this one so it's perfectly a tangent. It's not imperfectly. No, obviously you can't do it with this one because it's a Bezier. But basically with all the 3-point sliders, like this one or something, could select a circle, select the point. It's a bit finicky. And we can see this one should clearly actually be over here. No, just kidding. Or this one again. Put it over here instead. probably just makes your map basically look nicer a little bit if you do it like that, as opposed to just roughly arranging it how he did. Like this still kind of looks good, obviously, even if it's not perfectly in the tangent, just because it's within the tangent, basically. I mean, I guess another way of using this tool would be I select these two things, and instead of snapping it to the line, I just go, oh, the object just shouldn't be on
It should just
the
be
next
within
object
the
shouldn't be here.
should just be within the green line and the circle selected.
Yeah, you shouldn't be on unless if you want your objects to look nice and have implied motion or whatever. Don't put it on this side. Obviously, for the actual gameplay, it doesn't matter too much, but looks probably nicer to have it within the tangent. And you could use this tool for that. Again, to select the objects, there's an extra key that you have to set in here, the select key. And then there's the refresh key, and basically constantly pressing those. Okay, next option would be circles by 2 points. Generate a pair of takes a pair of virtual points and generates virtual circle. So this one should be, let's remove the circles and 3-point sliders. And then if I select this point and this point, it will now create 2 circles where these points like intersect. So I could probably use that to make some kind of patterns where, that's not what I wanted to do. Say I just have some circles or something. Could probably now create some nice arrangement around these circles here. Maybe you could even make some epic big brain jump pattern that's like let's say I lock these, and then I just put a bunch of circles down that are like on it. And as you can see, I mean, right now I'm still like hand placing them, roughly speaking. Like the visual distance between these is still determined by me, but I have like now this reference that I can kind of use. Could even do a slider here or something. Have the slider perfectly on that curve. Blah 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 blah. Wow, I'm such a good mapper. Look, look, Jordan. I made jump.
I
Wow,
like how all the objects are blank in the 5 circle. That's cool.
5 circle.
Yeah, 6, 4, and the slider are blank in 5.
Implied blanket. Oh yeah, I guess you could technically speaking do this thing where, say, I place 2 objects really closely. I unlock. Actually, this will probably not be the most useful way to do that. There's like another option, which is, where is it? Circles from singular point, which would be, hello, go away points. Why is it? Oh, I'm pressing N instead of, I pressed the wrong key. Okay, so so this is now this option. I skip, no, I didn't skip one. This is just this, oh, actually, no, it's down here. I skipped a bunch of options to get to that point down here. So, now, wait, didn't do it. What? Retry. Put circle down. Yeah, okay, it did it now. So, guess you could do what Jordan was talking about with this one, where you blanket everything around this object with that. Although with that one, the size of the circle is like, you have to like determine it in here with the setting, as opposed to taking 2 points, which is a bit more controlled, I guess. So I could select this one and this one. Oh, I didn't have the option on. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, so now I could make a bunch of objects that blanket this object or this object. I don't know. Wow, incredible. Such good mapping right here, right now. Some locked objects. Okay. Next one would be lines by 2 points. I kind of like that one because you can, let's say we basically go anywhere in this map. I take 2 points. I select them, and then it generates a line. With this one, I could now also check if, I guess roughly speaking, if this one is at the right angle as all of my other sliders, or at a consistent angle with all of my other sliders. Then obviously you could do other stuff like, let's say I only have these 2 circles here and I want to create a jump pattern or something. I could select this one, and then put circles in a line between them. There's other things I could do, like the one in combination with the bisectors of angles thing. I could now put a slider here or something. Oh. Could put a slider here. And if I have the lines and sliders option enabled. Oh, fucked up. Could now create a bisector here. Have the next slider be here or something. Oh, I deleted it. Wow, I like that. Incredible. So, I mean, at this point, it gets a bit difficult to use all of it. Like, options get progressively more complex because they can now all interact with each other as well and stuff. But you can still kind of see how there are some options that are probably more useful than others. Like, as we mentioned earlier, the one where it's lines on sliders, that's just really useful. Or the one with the tangents on the circles, that's probably useful to have objects be directly pointing where the one is pointing. And then with this one, with the lines by 2 points, I mean, that's basically useful for just arranging anything in a kind of line, even if, because what we had earlier, right, was like, with an earlier option, with the points, you could only place a circle perfectly in the middle, while with the line one, where is it? Oh. I'm accidentally skipping towards the end constantly. I should unbind that key. Okay, so with the earlier option, we had the one where it only created a point in the middle, but now we could also do patterns that have like more, I don't want to say inconsistent spacing, but like irregular spacing between objects. So it's like not perfectly in the middle. It's not arranged according to any multiple of anything. Could do patterns like this one really easily now. No classic kind of jump pattern. Ish. So next tool would be parallel lines, which is take a pair of lines and generates. So we can do it. We need something that creates a line again. I could have kept the earlier option enabled, I guess. Well, let's just do lines and sliders. So I have a slider here, creates a line. Say I put a slider here. Oh, what was it? Pair of a line and point. Okay, so instead of just this one, I can now select the point here, select the line. Didn't work.
I think the line is supposed to not be on the point. The
Yeah,
point's not
that's
supposed to be
probably
on the
true.
line.
Yeah, that's probably true. Let's just put a random circle here and enable, yeah, that option has to be enabled for that to be a point. Select the point, select the line. Now it created another line here that's parallel to this one. Now, obviously, how could we use that? Let's say I have a jump from here to here, and then I want to put the next object somewhere that's organized with this one. Could now do here. And because they're parallel, they must look good. Because symmetry. I mean, or like this. Because it's 1-4. What's the one with bisector of lines? Could obviously also select this line now and create, oh, just create another line with the parallel thing, I think. Could do this, rotate it by 90, get a bisector here, I don't know. And then after this slider, there's a slider that goes down here.
Trying to find the bisector of lines that never intersect because they're literally parallel.
Yeah, now that you say that. Imagine if it crashed because of that. Good tool, didn't crash. Okay. Next one, perpendicular lines. Takes a pair of line and point and generates a virtual line. So line and point could have just kept the stuff from earlier, or at least these two. So line, point, and now you have 90-degree line. If I put it over here, select it now. Yeah. I mean, and then obviously you could do stuff like, well, that's not what I wanted to do. Select this point, next slider goes, boop. And that looks nice. Wow, incredible mapping. There's probably some other use cases of that one. As again, since not only sliders can generate lines, but were also these other options earlier that generated lines. You could use that one in combination with some of the other ones, making it get increasingly more complex. But again, you don't have to use that one or any of these more intermediate ones. You could just have the lines on sliders or a tangent one or whatever, and that's totally fine. Bisector of 2 points. What is it? Take a pair of virtual points and generates bisector. So take 2 points, and then it created a line here, which we could now use to make a epic jump pattern, I guess. Now that's an epic jump pattern on blue ticks. Good pattern. You like this, Jordan?
It's okay.
What would be another thing you could do with that one? I mean, I guess you could put it over here or something. More complex looking shape.
Yeah, it's just like creating off-axis symmetry, basically.
Oh yeah, that's kind of true. What happens if it was only points, right? So I could take the slider, I could take a circle here or something. Oh, I'm always pressing the wrong key. When slider ends. Hello? Why is it not reloading? Ah, okay, now. I had to slightly move it. What was it? I'm trying to do the off-axis symmetry with this pattern, as you just said, but I think I'm thinking about it in the wrong way.
Yeah. I think
I
you are.
mean, wait, look, give me a sec. I'm rotating. I'm having an idea of how to do it. No. Uh, I mean, that's also kind of useful, I guess, for something. Whatever. Uh, next tool. Single point on circle. We had that one earlier. Was just, I put circle down. I select the point. It creates circle. Size of circle depends on the setting here. Yeah. Okay, now the next options are all gonna be like grid stuff. So square from 2 points, type A. I don't think I even have to read what it does. It's just, let's say I have these two circles here. And I select this one, select this one. Now it creates a grid. It keeps gridding. And then it stops, because they are very close. Now, if I enable the other option here, basically these are just different types of the same one. Like it creates a larger grid, while the other one creates a smaller type of grid. And as we said earlier, we can now lock this down, and now I could put down circles in whatever way I want. Could make an epic grid map out of this entire thing. I could set up this grid in some way, and then under here just save it again and use it for a different kind of map or something. And then the one at the bottom, these two, those are basically the same except for a square grid. It's like a triangle grid. And I guess if you want to have the mixed grid, you enable both of them. I mean, I guess that one should be kind of obvious. You could also just use it to, if you have some random assortment of objects or something, you can just get a grid positions based on any of these two. So if I was a real Monstrata mapper, Monstrata, yeah, like this one or something, blah blah. Let's say I'm Monstrata right now. I want to make some epic jump pattern. I'm like, yo, I have the circle here and the circle here. How do I make a grid out of this? I can't map without making a grid. It's impossible. So now I can just select this point and this point, and oh, I'm getting options where to place stuff. Next, they could go here, here, blah blah. I don't know. That's one way you could use it, I guess. Although, might still require some thinking around, because placing it here will probably be correct, but not mathematically correct, but not taking how it looks with this one into account or something. I mean, I guess I could have. I really need to unbind this key. I will in fact do it right now, so all of you can watch. Editor. Skip, where's skip to end? Or jump to end? Yeah. How can I unbind something?
I'm not sure actually.
X. What? No.
I think you can just unbind something, but then you'll have to unbind everything.
Semicolon. I don't know. Done. Yeah, whatever. So last option, intermediate, would just be tangent on circles on circle. Takes a pair of virtual circles, generates virtual circles. Let's just go back into this map again. No, I don't want. Let's even use the option where it's like, where's circles on points? There. Okay. And then 3-point side of circle. Now I have these two circles. I select the circle. I select the circle. What? I think I'm doing it wrong. I must be doing it wrong somehow. Let's see again. Oh, that's good. Come over here. take a virtual circle. Oh, and 2 points. Oh. Let's see, does it work with these 2 points? Oh. Disable this option. Okay. Nope, doesn't work. So I'll put circle here, I'll put circle here. Circle, point, point. And then it generated, based on those, on this circle, and those 2 points, it generated 2 other circles. Yeah. No, you could make some epic, incredibly nested pattern with that. Will look incredibly beautiful and probably just be garbage to play. Let's go. Yeah, so those were a bunch of the intermediate settings, what basically all of them do. In advanced, there are some more. I'm not sure why those are called advanced, because they seem kind of similar to the intermediate ones in some ways. Takes a pair of virtual lines or circle and generates a virtual point on each of the intersections. Yeah, I think I've let's try to go over those as well, I guess. I think I haven't tried them last time I was talking about this. Takes a pair of virtual lines or circles. The most complicated thing about that one is probably the or conditional there. So virtual lines and circles.
So it'll put a point where they're intersecting. I think that's quite useful because if you have two intersecting lines and you want them to like match together, just snapping to the lines isn't going to give you the actual point of intersection, is it? So yeah, it just did it then, did you see?
Yeah, oh, and it's doing it automatically. I don't even have to use the select key. Yeah, it's just set. Yeah, that's kind of useful. Probably.
But that's useful if
Yeah.
you have something like a perpendicular, so you could actually snap to where two intersecting lines are.
Yeah, that reminds me of some stuff in Adobe tools. You know what I mean? Like have you ever used Photoshop or Illustrator where it like automatically snaps things on the on it?
No.
Oh, that's fine. It's kind of just like a utility, I guess, in that sense. But even do this, and now the visual spacing is a little bit nicer. Yeah, seems kind of useful. Next one. Successor of 2 points. Oh, I think that was the one that I was thinking about earlier. Take 2 virtual points and calculates next virtual point using the same velocity. Oh, well, that more complex thing about that was probably the velocity part. So let's say I have these 2 objects. Hello? Doesn't generate points. Need to activate this. Sometimes you have to move the objects, I guess, very slightly for it to actually reset. I have it enabled. Okay, select. And now it put some further objects here, basically, that are the same distance as these 2. So that will probably be useful for making streams that go in a straight line. Like, I could select this one, select this one, and now you can see there's a few more points. Maybe if I may increase the iteration setting of it or whatever, I could basically make streams with this. And I think the other one, the next one is kind of the same, but it's like it takes curves into account. So if I do a thing like this or something, and I select 3 points, it now calculates the other things based on these 3 points. And I think it even noticed that between the spacing between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 is like slightly different. It's like decreasing. And because it noticed that, it makes it go down in spacing over time. So this could also be used as a tool to kind of get deaccelerating or accelerating streams. Could probably even make it more exaggerated or something. It's getting bigger here. It's like this. Yeah, then it tells me the next one is like over here because it has to accelerate even more. Yeah. So I mean, I guess if you're a big stream mapper, those options could maybe be relatively useful. Might even give you a bit more control than say Sliderator, where you can make streams that slow down based on just this curve here. I think there are a few different curve settings that you can use here to sort of play around, but to get your accelerating streams. But this one would definitely give you a lot more control, I feel like. Yeah. 3 points reversed. And it's opposite angle. So let's do that one again.
I think this is
Let's
not taking the successor, but like the. Wait, what did it just do?
No, it's at the end it says same velocity and opposite angle.
Oh.
I should probably do something with a stronger angle or something like this. Hello? Reset, thank you. Oh yeah, I see. So with this one you can see that like the points it placed here, here, and here, they are like the one here was going kind of like in a curve upwards, while this one is in a curve in the opposite direction. Let's test it what the free one was just now. So like this. Yeah, so with this one it's just like a continuous circle, I guess, kind of. Like the next point would be here, here, here. Let's see what that looks like. And I like that. Well, the other option was like rip. More like this. So more like a zigzag kind of thing. It could be even more different if I make the angle like more exaggerated or something. Yeah, the next one will be here, here, and here. Oh, and it still does recognize that it's like accelerating. So this one and this one and this one, they are all getting progressively more space. It's just that the angle is different. This would be, I guess, an interesting way to create perfectly accelerating, really difficult zigzag alternator style patterns. Well, the other one would be to have more smoother ones. Okay. So, well, I mean, so far the advanced options are basically probably most useful for if you're a stream mapper or an alternator style mapper to come up with some interesting kind of options. I imagine successor of 4 points, probably just the same as the previous ones, but like with 4 as opposed to 2. Takes let's say what it does take into account. 4 virtual points and calculates next virtual point using the same angle change, velocity change, and change change of velocity change. Okay, I see. So if I understand correctly, this one will probably be able to predict if I say it was going down in spacing, then again here. And obviously I'm also now changing an angle from here upwards into this direction. But now activate this one and select these 4 points. Okay. Well, definitely probably predicts whatever I'm doing relatively well. I was kind of making something that's almost random. It's like getting really fucked up at this point. Let's see what would happen with this.
I think because it's taken a succession of 4 points, it's not just calculating the acceleration, but with 4 points, it's able to calculate an increase or decrease of acceleration itself.
Yeah, basically. So far, it's only giving me really tiny spacing. Oh, that's. I mean, this is very mathematically accurate in some way, but it seems like just ugly. I mean, this stream is ugly, so what happens if I just make down a perfect straight line with 4 objects? I mean, it gives me 3 more objects in this line. What happens if I sli slightly move the last one downwards? Cursed stream. Uh, Interesting. So it kind of makes like a hook. I guess it recognized that there's like an angle change right here at the end. And then it's continuing that angle change forward. Yeah. I mean, with the 4th one, I feel like you probably have to play around a little bit to like really understand its full utility. But with the other ones, I mean, you can kind of already see how that would be useful for really complex stream mapping. Scale, rotate, and around a fixed point. Spins and scales any virtual objects around a fixed point specified and a fixed point by a specified angle and scalar. So in this one, you do have these settings by which it is doing that. You will probably have to change these when doing anything. Let's say I just take these objects or something. What's that? Okay, I think I don't understand that one so far. Or maybe I like have to put it over here instead to actually see it. Nope. Still don't
Can
understand.
you try to do it without using a curve? Do it with just a line.
Oh. So I don't know how to set the fixed point. Sequential deep.
The fixed point will literally just be a point, right? Refresh it now.
Nope.
Have you selected multiple points there?
No. Yeah, it must be something else. What else if I put scalar to 2? Yeah, with this one, for some reason, I have not quite an idea how to use it. I think same with the reflection across a line. Mirrors any virtual objects over a virtual line. It could be that you have to use some kind of extra special selection key or something. Let's see. Let's just try this. Point, line, line. Yeah, I'm not sure. Access input selection. What? Select needs locked objects. Actually, give me a second. I'll move around some stuff. In fact, I'll delete this. I will lock this line. Did I do it? No, I didn't do it. Hello? Why is it not locking? What? Now I'm confused. Oh, maybe because I was in the menu. Okay, now it's finally locked. Thank God. Let's see if I can now do it. Need objects which relevance at least this high.
It literally already did what you wanted to do, you know.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay. No, I think I understand now. So with this one to define what the line is that it's reflecting across, you have to there's like these options here. So the axis input selection, which is the line that it's reflecting across, consider that it's going to be that it has to be a locked object or needs to be generated by a certain generator or is not generated by this generator. Actually, I think these are just settings for what this line is supposed to be. And you could like input a number here as well. The number is basically under relevance. Everything is set to like 0.8 or whatever right now. I could set some of them to like say 2 or something. And then if I put this number to 2, it will now only reflect across objects generated by something that has relevance to. Now, that's a bit complicated to understand, but I mean, it did this, right? I can now reflect anything across this line. I can probably even make a entirely symmetric map around this. Yeah, I could just like make an entire map structured around this singular line here. Which, you know, that's kind of neat, I guess. Whoa, that's a bunch of lines. Your Monstrata mapping is clearly perfect because there's these bunch of lines here.
And they're all triangles as well.
True. It gets confused by these though. Wait, now I can do this one. Oh, it's not reflecting, I think, because it's too much points. It's too much for the tool. Yo, that's epic symmetry. Looks so cute. Okay, whatever. So I assume the rotated one basically functions in the same way, kind of. Yeah, like you have to somehow specify what the origin point is.
If
mean-
you lock a point and then try to use this tool, I think it should work.
Yeah, basically. In fact, I think you can even do something funny, which is like, let me go here. Unlock. Hello? Oh, I have to close this. Unlock. Okay, I think I locked the point. So now something you could do, which is kind of useful with the singular point in the middle, is you could make an entire map structured around now this singular point, basically. Like that every object is in some way rotated around the point or something. What's the setting? Need selected objects. I think it did it. Oh, the scalar thing is actually scaling it. I think. So I just did rotation and scaling. Or like if it's 1. Yeah, okay, so it took this virtual circle, and then based on this other locked circle I was selecting, it rotated this circle around here. Now, obviously, since it's basically just in the middle of the playfield, it's not that special. Let me unlock quickly, and then just get like a random point somewhere else. Like, I don't know. We'll take this point or something. Maybe not. I'll go somewhere else, so there's not much shit happening. I'll just put a singular point here or something. Lock that, go somewhere else. Now I could select this one. Yeah. Now I can just rotate around stuff around this singular point. Can take this point and rotate it by 180 degrees around this point. I don't know. Slider here. Take this line, rotate it around this point by 180. Let's do 120. Just to try it out. Yeah. I mean, with this one, even if you don't even have to use it with particular objects in your map. Literally, you could just use it to generate some kind of line pattern or whatever, and then save that one over here, and then create some kind of map that's structured around it. It's probably, besides just being useful to make fancy looking things, you could also use it for gimmicks and stuff. It's probably one of the better use cases for this tool overall. So yeah, I mean, those are basically all the advanced tools. There's a third option if you don't know what you're looking for. Let's go line. Then I get every option that has something to do with a line or something. There's a bunch of other settings. Bad thing is sadly I don't understand too much about all the relevancy sequential stuff or whatever. This toggle selection button, I don't know how the usability stuff works. This button, the save tables, that can be used for, say I want to save a certain configuration of which things are activated. Like I just want lines on linear sliders, I just want points on slider anchors. What else? What is the one do you want, John? Pick one. Whatever, circle and point. Then I guess I can save this under basic.
Yeah, so you can just have like super. Honestly, if you start using this, I would imagine probably what you'd want to have is like points on slider ends, points on circle and slider heads.
Mhm.
And then like circles on 3-point sliders. I don't see why you would ever have intersection points disabled, because that seems like probably one of the most useful things. That should honestly be a basic thing, not advanced.
Yeah, I assume it's probably because is this something you can figure out? No. Yeah, maybe there is something just more special about that one. I mean, the fact that it has a or in the sentence already is kind of making it a little bit more complicated because like it can be either it can either do this thing or this thing. But yeah, I mean, it would be probably could still fit under basic. It's probably just because under basic it's all the tools that are like used to generate virtual objects basically, and then the intermediate ones are ones that once you select one or two of the objects, you get something else.
Yeah. If you are going to use this tool, I would recommend turning the intersecting thing on. Because, for example, if you create like two straight sliders and you have like the lines from linear sliders enabled, and you want to place up like a circle where those 2 points intersect, it will actually generate the point where it needs to go exactly, rather than like if you try to manually snap between the lines, I'm pretty sure it won't do it. Like you won't really be able to get it perfectly.
Why is it locked? What does mean unhandled exception? Okay. Wait, what was the example you were just talking about?
So having two sliders point towards a circle, and you want to put a circle there,
Oh, like say,
like in
Right.
your tempo limit, basically.
oh, I think I know which one you mean. Oh, tempo. Is it like? No, don't remove all bookmarks, thank you. Like this one.
Yeah. So if you generate lines and then maybe not just two of them, just generate two lines, and then where those lines intersect, it's actually put a circle where you can snap, like the two
Yeah, the
circles.
circle.
Whereas
So
if you,
no matter where I move this now, I could just go, yep, that's where they are intersecting. Now with my actual pattern, they are not intersecting that nicely. I could probably even do something like, say, I see where those two are intersecting. I get this one, and I like move it over here or something. And now they are perfectly intersecting, theoretically speaking. Although the visual spacing is more consistent. But now I could snap it to this. Now it's clearly more superior. Probably not, because it has like this ugly overlap now. But yeah, I mean, probably noticed throughout that there is just a few things with this one where, even though it's all like mathematically perfect, always it still happen that things just don't look right. And I think that's just a general thing that you might even learn if you try designing anything at any point. Like there's stuff about how objects that are placed in the middle of a circle, if it's text that appears in the middle of a circle, it like if it's literally mathematically perfectly in the middle, it will still seem it's too far up or stuff like that. There's just like weird things about how our perception works that you have to like work around a little bit. So don't just place things down with these tools or whatever just because they are mathematically perfect, but always like also think, does it actually look good to you? Is there something about it that makes it look worse, even if it is technically speaking mathematically perfect? Just important to keep that in mind, I feel like. Yeah. How long have we been talking, or have I been talking so far about this?
1 hour and 28 minutes.
Okay, I mean that's fair, I guess. Are there any questions about this tool so far? If not, we can just go to the hit sounding stuff.
No questions.
What?
No
No questions?
questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we can just go to hit sounding. I won't literally hit sound something right now. I'll just get something random. Sure. So the thing with hit sounding is that there are multiple tools, right? There's like the hit sound preview helper, which is the actual one that you're supposed to use when hit sounding, and hit sound studio is just for exporting whatever you get with hit sound preview helper, and then copier is for copying right at the end. Yeah. So let's just imagine a scenario. We have this map, and for some reason you didn't hit sound it while you were mapping, which is just actually literally better than using this tool. Like unironically. So but we now have to use the tool, or let's say this is not my map, I'm hit sounding it for someone else. I'll just go step by step through what you have to do to actually hit sound it. Yeah, so the first step would be, because of the way this tool works, is you have to go into the folder, into the map set folder of the map. Do it, yeah. And make a copy of this folder. So now there's a copy. I'll just call it HS layers. Doesn't matter what the name is. It's just supposed to be a different folder separate from the actual one. And in this one now you have to go to the .osu, edit it. And under the version, the difficulty name has to be different. So I'll just call it HS layers. And then in here I'll change the name as well. Okay. So now when I tab out, when I press escape, I now have the same map but twice. Like literally the same. The only thing that's now different is that whatever, I can just delete all the audio files in this folder and it will keep them in the other one. Or I can or whatever, I can just edit this map basically however I want, and this one will be left unaffected. No, that's not literally the point of doing this. The point of doing this is that now inside this folder we will put in some files that are going to be used by HitSound Preview Helper. But those are not going to be the literal they're not going to have the literal names that you need later. Like I could put I will put something in here later that's just going to be called, I don't know, like kick 5 or something, and then I can name it in here. And then the actual work of renaming all the files, putting the numbers at the end, that's going to be done by HitSound Studio automatically. Okay, so next thing I would do is make this map a mania map. It might seem a little bit weird at first, I guess, but the way HitSound Preview Helper works basically is that there are these different. Actually, let me just make a new project. At the beginning, it's just this empty screen, and with this plus sign down here, you can create. I don't know what this would be called. Basically, a thing for a hit sound. Now, it will take. What I can do here is define the X or Y position of a certain circle in a map. So, like, let's say if this was not a mania map but a standard map, I think in the top left corner, what would that be? Would that be X0, Y1, Jordan, or what?
I'm not sure.
Well, but whatever. I could just basically make this like 1, 1, and then if there is a circle on the grid in the position X position 1, Y position 1, this tool will apply whatever file name I put in here. If I put a file into this folder that's called soft slider slide, and if I now put soft slider slide into this field here, it will apply that sample to exactly that circle in that position on the screen. And then in here I can set whether it's supposed to be a whistle, finish, a clap, what sample set, and additions it's supposed to be, and index. Usually you don't have to define the index, but can be useful for special cases. Now with Mania, there's this useful thing where basically every circle or every object in a Mania map like this is technically speaking in the .osu code defined as a circle in like a certain position. Like they are just tiny little circles arranged like this on the playfield from left to right. Now, Ollie Bombi has like on a video about how he explains this tool, he's written down the numbers for what all the Mania keys are. So I have this template here that's just called template 1, which is just every mania key from 1 to 18. I can maybe link that one
Yeah,
later.
can you send that?
Yeah, I can do that later. So now if I in Mania go to the key count, which is under difficulty song setup, and co-op mode, I now have an 18 key Mania setup, and this is going to be used for our hit sounding, because now you can place 18 different hit sounds, theoretically speaking, at once. It won't actually make much sense. Let's just say 3. In the standard editor, to get 3 hit sounds at the same time, you would have to do the thing where you place a circle and then you like drag it over and stuff. So it's just much more convenient to do everything in Mania. And it might happen actually that you need more than 18 samples. In that case, I can show that later, but you can basically make either you can make another Mania difficulty for hit sounding, or you can theoretically speaking do this in standard as well. You just define all the X and Y positions as circles, and then you could have a huge grid of circles and use that to hit sound. But again, Mania is just more convenient, even though it might take a little bit of time to get used to this, because it's like scrolling in this way, etc. Blah blah. So now that we have this set up, I usually when I hits on something by someone else, I go into the inherited timing point section. I press Control A, and oh my god, it's lagging. Give me a moment. So I select every green line, and then I want to delete basically all of them, except for when there's key I happening. I think I don't even need to, technically speaking, do that, but it's just more. I think it is still useful. It's convenient for me, because then I might avoid errors if it's like copying over or something. Or maybe I just don't actually need to do that at all. So now we don't have any green lines. If we now hit sounding, I could just place them down on my own, however I like. So the first thing we would do whenever we would be hit sounding would be listening to the song a little bit, just identifying, I guess, what instruments there would be, right? I mean, you can't hear this or whatever. And in fact, it won't matter at all what is actually going on. I will just show you how to put the sample you want in this. So I have this folder here with a bunch of hit sounding samples. Let's say I also have a folder full of templates, like this one in here with a bunch of samples. I also have a corresponding template in here. If I selected this one, it will already have the names of everything put in. So you can make, if you happen to find yourself basically using the same samples or the same kind of songs constantly, you just keep reusing stuff. You could make things for yourself a lot easier by basically just put all the samples that you constantly keep using inside a folder, then make a template like this, save it under here. Then anytime you hit sound something, you don't have to type in all the file names or anything. You just open up the template and you can start hit sounding instantly, basically. But we're not gonna do that for now. I'll just open this up and I'll show you how to put stuff in. So let's say I want a basic kick. I don't know. Give me kick 8. So I'll just copy kick 8 over, pull it into the folder of the map, the HS layers folder. I was just pressing mouse for really quickly to get there, in case I was a bit too quick. Then let's say I also want the snare. I don't know. Snare 4. Doesn't matter. I just put it in here. Maybe something else I should explain is that, so here I could now put in a name of what instrument this is. This won't matter. This is just for organization. You could keep these however you like. It doesn't matter. But let's say I call this one whistle, because I usually like having my whistle on the leftmost side. So now, and you don't have to define a file name here. This is for putting custom hit sound files in. But I could just go here, define this as a whistle, and say it's a soft hit whistle. Now, one useful thing I think would be if you go under preferences, there's the quick run option, which is a hotkey that you can define however you want. Usually, when I'm hit sounding, or basically all the time, I just put the none option to timing helper. Wait, no, not timing helper. What the fuck? Why is it set to hit sound preview helper? Okay, so now what happens is if I put a object here in this lane is defined as this one. So anything that's in position 14 minus 4, which is where the circle is in the code, is going to be whatever sample I have is applied to this lane. So I will put down a bunch of objects here, and either if I press the run tool button here, or just press my quick run hotkey, it now made all of these things whistles. I hope that made sense so far. There's like everything in this lane is going to be a whistle, because I've defined the key that's I defined the thing that's at the position of all the objects here. If an object is at this position for 14 minus 1, it's going to be a whistle. Now, obviously, we could now do the thing where call this kick, get the name of the kick file, like copy paste it in here, and now if we go back and we put a bunch of kicks down, and we beat or we put a bunch of objects down in this lane and press the auto hot run key, it now assigned the sample to all these nodes. I think you can't hear that, right?
No.
No? Yeah, that's good. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, basically it's just the kick is playing and then there's the whistle happening here. Now obviously so far I didn't yet define what it is. Let's say it's a hit normal and drum. That's just what it's going to be. Yeah, so I can now keep doing this. I can just listen to the song, what are the hit sound files or whatever that I want to place on everything, and do that kind of stuff. Place it all down, press the auto run hotkey, or press the button down here, and it's going to apply stuff. An important thing about the Mania editor, by the way, which might accidentally happen when you tab out, is if you press tab, it like makes all the nodes and vertical lines disappear. I don't actually know what the point of that feature is, but you might encounter that and think, why is everything gone? What the fuck is going on? You press tab and yeah, whatever. Okay, so I mean, I could do the same thing with the snare. I could even do it that there's 3 objects playing at the same time, or whatever. You can even do stuff in here, which is, if you know anything about normal hit sounding, is that if you have something like, say, a soft hit whistle, and you can't then have any additions from the drum or normal sample set. So I couldn't have a combination like soft hit whistle and then make this one a normal hit whistle. Except for with this tool you can. I think it didn't do it. Oh, it was on this key. Yeah, so now this is a normal hit whistle and this is a soft hit whistle playing at once. Now, that's just a weird thing about Mania, I believe. Like if you actually take this and put it into Hitson Studio and then export it, it will just assign one of these two to be something else. it will like somehow try to make either this a soft hit clap or this a normal hit clap or something. It will try to find some way around this issue. So whenever you hit sounding with this kind of tool, I would just advise to basically avoid placing objects like that down. And I think if you actually were to use this with the standard editor, it would just literally not allow you. I'm not sure if this is specifically a Mania thing or if it's because if we go into the notepad, it actually assigned the literal name of the file to this object. So it's not just that it's like a normal hit normal or something, it literally assigned the name to it. It could be that in standard it can somehow do that as well, but I'm not sure. Also, there's some other stuff later on, that some other issues that you can run into about that I'm going to talk about. Basically, just keep in mind if you hit something with this tool, there are impossible combinations that you probably shouldn't be using, like drum sample set, drum additions, and normal or soft additions. Combining them is just not possible. Yeah, keep that in mind.
I'm pretty sure the standard editor can assign like non-standard file names as hit sounds to objects.
Yeah, I think it can. In fact,
I think you just literally put the file name after the object in the .osu code, and that's how it works.
You mean like here?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually what I wanted to talk about later was that my mentor, who I hit sounded for, actually did that. He copied from the Mania div to to his standard map set, and it did that stuff. But I think it's just that in standard it doesn't actually, either you're not allowed to do that or it doesn't work correctly. Basically, I would just advise to avoid the impossible combinations. And by the way, we can talk about that example I just mentioned in a second. Now, something else is I think the shortcut for well, you can't copy green lines as easily as in the default editor. If I like say take these two lines, I press Ctrl V, I can't do it for some reason in Mania. Well, you can do it in Taiko and standard. I have no idea why. It's really annoying. Yeah. Also, I think sometimes when you try to change volume, you can like accidentally press on something and open up a window. Doesn't seem like I could do it right now. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. What you would just be doing is just imagine there's just a bunch of objects being assigned. You hit sound this map, you occasionally save, and then whatever you're done. What now? Actually, before that, there's one other thing you can do, which is kind of useful. Under here, there's this option called Rhythm Guide. It's also like a separate tool over here. I don't know why you would be using this and not just the thing down here, but whatever. So what we can do with that is if we hit sounding something that's already made, we can select a copy from, so this map, and then copy to our hit sounding layer div. And we can add the rhythm of the map to our thing. So if I put it to Mania, add map as opposed to new map, run now, and then reload the map. It now plays the rhythm of every note into this one, and I can use this as like a reference. Like I put it over here. Now whenever I'm hit sounding, I can like see, oh, I put a hit sound here, but there's no object here. I'm just wasting my time. Or well, I mean, you can still put hit sounds here, and it could maybe still be compatible with say other difficulties and stuff. But just if you hit sounding for one particular map, and maybe there's some overmapping in it or something. Let's say this is overmap triple. I would then be able to see it and hit sound it appropriately. Yeah. Would I recommend when you after you're done deleting all of this stuff to avoid getting a bunch of extra stuff later, but it's not necessary. You could technically speaking just keep it as whatever. So Yeah, we can now assume that we're just done with our hit sounding. I mean, there's some options down here. There's the copy, paste, and deleting of zones. Oh, the things are called zones. Okay. So you could like select multiple ones here, or I guess just one, and then delete it or copy paste it. I could take this one, copy it down here. Wow, then change the position or something, make this one slightly different, whatever. Yeah. So if we assume we're done, we could now move on to Hits on Studio, which I should also make a new project for. Load samples. I've never actually used that one, but I could probably use it. So what you're gonna do in this one now is you have to press the plus button down here, and there are multiple different options of how you can import hit sounds into this tool. The one we're gonna be using right now is going to be import hit sounds. So the name is kind of irrelevant. And then we just fetch. So we click the button to fetch this map that we have open right now. And then there are a few settings down here, like discriminate between volumes, which makes separate hit sound layers for all the different volumes. What this means basically, I have a kick here right now in a section with, what's the volume? Oh, it's like 50. Let's say if I then use the same kick in this section with volume 80, it would basically make two different layers for the kick. One in this section that's like the louder volume one, and then the quieter volume one. I usually have this one disabled because it was unnecessary for me most of the time. But could probably be useful in case you want to do some different things to the louder sections versus quieter sections or something. Or I guess it can just give you more control. Detect duplicate samples will just automatically delete duplicate samples. Would basically always keep that on. Wait, no. Yeah, the below one removes them. The upper one just detects all of them. And then at the bottom, it's include storyboard hit sound samples. So if I'm if I'm importing hit sounds from a storyboarded map, then I would have to click this. In fact, you could probably use this tool to like maybe even steal storyboarded hit sounds from a different map and put them into whatever you're doing. But yeah, then I just press accept, and now it took the whistle and the kick I had, and there's these two layers. So what it shows you on the left when you select them is a bunch of information about this one. For example, it shows here this one is a drum sample set, hit normal. When I press the button, it shows you exactly how often it appears in my map. So these numbers are like offsets, I think. So at these offset positions, that's where how often my kick appears. I think if it doesn't show it right now, but if you like, oh, it shows it here, I guess. There's like the ammo, which is amount. So it shows how often the sample appears. It might happen that if you hit sounding something longer, there's going to be like a certain sample is 100 times used or something, or one is only a single time used, blah, blah, blah. Then it shows you where the sample is. So here, if you press this button, I could now change the kick to something else. Could make it this kick instead. Sure. I can change the volume or panning and pitch shift of the sample, which that's kind of interesting that you can do that in here. So you could like literally make it quieter or louder. I wouldn't recommend doing that personally. What I often do is if I hit sound stuff, and I want to really finely adjust the samples, I actually go into like a program like FL Studio and edit them in some way, like making them louder. But I guess you could also kind of do it in here. Then at the bottom is just more information about like what kind of type of thing of layer is this? Is this a storyboard hit sound? Is it a MIDI thingy? And then it shows you where the source of it is. Yeah, and then where the source of the sample is. Then you could press this button to reload the sample. So something I would recommend doing as well when you have the hit sound layers map open is you can press this button, and if you apply any changes of how many samples appear in here, like say I put down a few more kicks, and then I export this. If I now reload here, it's going to change the amount of how many samples has appeared. So basically, that's you have to do this if you want to do changes afterwards. Another option down here is also that you can select what default sample is going to be played if nothing happens. So you can set it to soft, and I don't know. I had default soft cut. So this sample will now just be played whenever basically no hit sound is placed down at all, but there's still a certain sound. Yeah. Sometimes something that can happen is that when you have define certain samples, like say, it didn't happen here, but sometimes when you have drum hit normals or any kind of drum sample set or something, at least it happens for me, that it changes it to be a whistle of the like it's not the samples that I actually wanted, like puts it too soft for some reason. So sometimes in here, whenever you open this up and import everything, you should always check if everything here is set correctly. You can also double click on it to preview the sample. You couldn't hear that right now, I think, or did you?
No.
Okay, whatever. If you could hear it, then whatever. You can now also change the order of them. I believe there's a guide inside the server by Hyter and Hyperdalian or something. I forgot the name, but there was one recommendation in here to put stuff that's drum at the top, normal in the middle, and soft at the bottom, or something like that, to avoid certain file error conflicts or something that can happen. Okay, so now would be just a setup you would do for normal hit sounding. Then you would just press the run tool button, and it will automatically create a hit sounding div and samples for you that are named. So I could call this here is going to be the name of the hit sounding div. Call it Celektus HS. You have to activate this button if you wanted to export the actual .osu. Otherwise, it could just give you the samples, or just the map. So you could select either one, but most of the time you're gonna have to have both of these enabled. I usually have show results on as well. It's just like a little thing that pops up that shows you how many things were exported. Delete all files in export folder can be kind of useful. It might happen that you accidentally leave stuff inside the folder from previous time if you copy over. I would recommend keeping this on to basically delete everything that was previously in the folder. And then the last option is like if you have multiple times trying to re-export, then it keeps the same schema. I'm not sure exactly explain what it does. I'm not even quite sure. I think in most cases you probably don't have to activate this. And at the bottom there are then some more options about how it's going to export it. Like there's these different modes, which is it will export it as it will export everything as storyboard hit sounds. Will export everything normally, and then there's this coinciding option. That one is used if you want to have it export a standard map that can have hit sounds that can be copied to a mania map, I believe. Or what does it say again? Let's see. Hello. Tooltip, please. I want the tooltip. Oh. Choose for the coinciding option combined the mania game mode will export a lossless representation of the hit sound layers. I mean, that explanation is a little bit misleading, I feel like, or like not just a bit weird. Basically, what the coinciding mode will do is if there are multiple hit sounds happening at once, like 3 of them, it will export them as 2B objects, as opposed to in the standard mode, it will just like do it normally. It will just activate them as separate, as one object with a whistle, finish, or whatever. While coinciding mode will be one object that's a whistle, another 2B object at the same time that's a finish. Yeah. And then at the bottom, the node grouping leniency setting, I think, is if something is like too close to each other or something. If there's like it will ignore certain nodes basically if they are like slightly off or if they are unsnapped or something, or if they are very close in time. Like if two nodes are only 15 milliseconds apart, it will just group them together. This option is then for what the first custom index is. If you don't know what the custom index is if you go into the editor, you press F6, the number here that you can define of basically what the sample should be called. Like if I would normally to hit sound this, I would have to call the custom whistle hit sound soft hit whistle or soft hit whistle 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. This will just say that the first index or the first number it will set will be whatever you want. So you could export it like this. You probably don't have to change it, but let's say you want to add another layer on top of your hit sounding that you have already done. And let's say your custom index so far goes up to 15. Could then type in here 16, and then it will add all the different samples from 16 onwards. So there will be no file. You can avoid file conflicts with it that way. I had to use that like once because I had a map that had normal hit sounds and then key sounds on top of it. So normal hit sounds, the first custom index was 1, and then for the key sounds, which was a different layer, I had to put it to a higher number. The export game mode is just going to be what if you export it, if it's going to be a standard diff or a mania diff. So if you want to copy from your hit sounding diff to your standard map, it should be standard. But if you want to copy from to a mania map, if you're hit sounding for mania, then you should probably put it to mania. Same for Taiko, etc. I don't know why you would use this for Taiko. Maybe you could use it for Taiko actually. You could just make a map inside Mania, in Mania editor, and then export it to Taiko.
I think
That'd be funny.
it is possible to do custom hit sounding in Taiko.
Oh, true.
It's
Yeah.
not very often that people do that, but you could
Yeah.
use it for that.
Yeah. True. It also has to be like drum samples, right?
Yeah.
Stuff. So basically, nobody just does it because it just sucks most of the time. At the bottom, then there's also options for what file format the samples will be exported as. So you could put it if you have like a map that has insane file size, like you have it's key sounded or something, and you have 100 or 200 individual samples. You can put it to say OGG or MIDI. I don't know if I've never tested if MIDI actually works, but say you could put it to OGG and it will just because OGG is a compressed audio file format, it will compress the sound, make the file, and make it lower file size. But default is just probably going to be whatever samples you actually put into the folder. So if you put in a mix of MP3s and WAV files, it's going to be that. If you put it to one of these two WAV options, so IE float is like a WAV file that's 32-bit, and if you had some kind of $10,000 setup, you could like hear the actual difference. And then 16-bit is kind of the same, but whether it will sound the same on the $10,000 setup and your setup. I can't really explain that right now. It's fine. In most cases, I would just leave it to default, unless again you have to file size constraints, then put it to OGG. At the bottom, there's this option as well for mixed samples. I've never really encountered a case where Hitsone Studio is actually doing the mixed sample stuff. I'm not quite sure what triggers it. But basically, I think those are supposed to be if there is stuff happening, like impossible combinations of notes, like a drum hit finish and a soft hit whistle, it should somehow how merge the two files together in some way. I think that's supposed to be the point, but I've never really encountered it actually happening, which is a bit weird. I just don't know what works. I think I have to find it out at some point. But I mean, yeah, you could set that one to a different thing than the top one, or you could set them both to the same. Most cases, just leave it to default. It's fine. When I press accept, it will now export everything. It shows me this. It shows that number of sample indices 1, number of samples 2, number of green lines. So sample indices is how many. Oh yeah, what the index of it is. So if I have different sets of hit sounds that are like in here. There's one section that's like 1, there's one section that's like 2, one that's like 3. It will say there are 3 here. And then number of samples is just as how many WAV files it exported, and green lines should be obvious. So now I have this export folder here with my stuff. What I can now do is I go to my original map set into the map set folder, and I take all the samples that I have here. And now you would have to, if you already had hit sounds here, delete all of these, which I'm actually going to do. And then I put these in here. Also the hit sound diff. Now if I press escape, there's going to be this hit sound diff here. Right. That was unnecessary. Anyway, so now this is the hit sounding diff. So there's a kick and the whistle here. There's just a kick here. There's a whistle here. And it just you combo every object. Whatever. So I could now take this. I could go to hit sound copier, which we already explained last time, and copy from this diff to this one. I'm not going to do that actually, but yeah, that's how it works. So I could now just copy over with that. Are there any questions so far about
No.
that? Nope.
Hey, I will probably leave pretty soon because I have trainings in the morning. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. If you want, you could already leave. I'm only going to talk about like a few additional things in Hit Sound Studio, then we're basically done, like key sounding stuff.
I will stick for some time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So now that we talked about basically the normal way of doing things, might have noticed when I pressed the plus down here, there were multiple options. So instead of just importing hit sounds, something you can do is import. Actually, when I was importing the hit sounds, these two things, the kick and the whistle, those are individual layers. What you can do is instead of doing that project, I could import a single layer, just call it kick or something, and then get the sample that's kick or something. Except now I have a singular kick layer. I think what he could do now to theoretically speaking hit sound with this is you could either already get I could take this some other map or something, use that to do it. Probably wouldn't work. Or I could like go in here in the show times and type in a bunch of timestamps of where the sample should be appearing. I honestly don't quite know where you would. Can't really use this on its own. Something you can do is do the import hit sounds thing, and then you can add an additional singular layer in here. Yeah, and then you can probably just it might be useful to put in extra storyboard hit sounds in or stuff like that, or something else. Just putting in some kind of extra hit sounds on top. You could do that with adding these singular layers. I've never really encountered a case where you would want to do that, but I guess there's an option to do that. Besides that, there is import MIDI. Okay, for that I would need a MIDI file. I can actually get one. Just give me a second. Yeah, I assume you still can't hear any sounds, right?
No, we can't.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll just go here. MIDI.
Would,
I have like
would you like me
random.
to? Oh, do you have one already? I was gonna send you one.
Yeah, I have just a random MIDI here. It's just some chords or something. I open. No. Just want to open the folder that it's in. How am I gonna do that? Oh, wait, I can put it. Oh, okay. My God. So now I can go here, import MIDI, name it piano. Then I tap in the file path of the thing here. There's like an offset setting for probably if you have a MIDI file, chances are that it's going to start at offset 0, like right here. There's no offset, but your map or like where the objects are in your map won't. So you can put here where the first key sounded object in your map would be or something. Like let's say this section here is its key sounded. After here it's key sounded, so I just put in offset here. Does it work? Whoa. What? Did I just close the window? Did I just break it? I think it doesn't actually quite work to put a timestamp in here, so we're just gonna ignore it. But there's probably some way you could get around that, whatever. So there are multiple options again down here, which is like in MIDI files, there can be multiple different layers of MIDI inside the file. So this one is just a singular one, but it might be if I put a certain MIDI file in here over this, it would ask me like, do you want to play it? Do you want the MIDI of the drum layer or the piano layer or whatever? And then mapping tools could like discriminate based on that as well, or it could just use the notes of everything. Oh, usually you probably want to activate that, unless it's just a MIDI file with multiple different layers, but they're all the same instrument, which I don't know why you would encounter a case like that. That's weird. Discriminate key sound. Discriminate lengths is kind of important. There's like a level of roughness you have to type in between 1 and 5. It's a bit difficult to explain how exactly that works, but basically what I could do inside a program like FL Studio is for every single one of these MIDI notes, I could record a audio file. Like I could make this a piano or something. FL keys, I don't know. You won't be able to hear this, but when I play it now, it plays like piano notes. Now, obviously, because these notes are shorter than these, they are going to sound different. So at least in the case of piano specifically, if you wanted to key sound something correctly, you would need key sounds for every single individual key. So I would need a recording of the E, the D here, the G here, blah blah blah, and then for different lengths. So I would need like a 1 beat long. Is it 1 beat or 4 beats? Whatever. I would need a D that's this long, a sample, and one that's this long. And then with this option, I can then discriminate between them in the hit sounding thing. I'll just put it to 3 or something. I don't know. You might have to test around with the roughness to like really get how it works. But if basically we'll just like it's kind of like how many levels of lengths of notes it will care about. If you set it to what was it? 1 is standard and then 5 is extreme. Actually, let's just put it to 1. So I assume with 1 is just going to be normal, and with 5 is going to be more going to ignore more notes. Either it's going to ignore more notes or permit more notes, something like that. Whatever. So then the same thing goes for discriminating velocities, even though so that might be kind of important for piano. So you can see there's like this velocity change in here between the notes. Like these are all quiet. You can't hear it, but these are really quiet. These are really loud suddenly. So if I wanted to somehow actually have that in my key sounding, if that actually appears in a song I'm key sounding, I would need different samples for these, or I would need different sample for say a note that's this long and quiet, and one that's exactly as long but louder because they just sound different. And to do that in mapping tools, I would have to select this option. Then again, there's the same roughness thingy, which you can just put to, what's it, 1? Intervals of 1 to 5, intervals of 5. Don't quite understand the numbers, but that's fine, whatever. Sometimes that might not be needed, like if you have a song that has a piano that's basically playing, or just some instrument that's playing at like a consistent loudness or roughness or whatever, then you don't need to select this. But otherwise, if it's a quiet piano song with some quiet notes and some louder notes, then this one might be useful to get extra control over over the samples. What was key sound again? Make separate hit sound layers for different keys in the music. Okay, so that one would probably also be kind of useful. You should probably always keep that on. So it's going to make a hit sound layer for every E. Whenever the E appears, it's going to make a different hit sounding layer. There's going to be a hit sound layer for an E, there's going to be one for an A, blah, blah, blah. And with the other options below, there's going to be one for an A that's this long and this loud. There's going to be an A that's this long and only half as that's only half as long, but same loudness. There's this one which is a little bit shorter than this one, but it's like super quiet, blah blah blah. It's going to generate all kinds of stuff like that. So if I now press accept, it doesn't know what to do. Okay. I guess it just doesn't understand the file path or something. Let me just what
Is it because it's not actually a MIDI file?
could be. Let's just try that again. Why is there no MIDI?
Yeah, it's like a different, like FL's file format for MIDIs, which isn't actually a MIDI, I think.
Oh fuck. Well, I can just export this as MIDI. Export MIDI desktop. No. Yeah, untitled, sure. Yes. What? Okay. just gonna ignore that. There's untitled open. Except no, contains no. Okay. Export. Or I might be doing it wrong again, actually.
No, I think that would work.
Actually, isn't there should be an option here. Export as MIDI.
Oh wait, you exporting the full project?
Yeah, but it should have still worked somehow. Oh, I think I did it now. Okay, let's go. Yeah, okay, so now we have a bunch of thousands of nodes. So what this now means is that there are these tons of layers for, again, every single, it says which pitch of node it is, and then the two numbers at the end are like how loud and how long it is, roughly speaking. So because these are just layers, none of them have samples assigned yet. So if you wanted to hit sound something with Hit Sound Studio, what you would now have to do is, if I go in here, I now have to take this. I would have to somehow either just get samples that you already just have, like if you have a hit sound, there's the Lasse hit sound folder, which I have here, that actually has key sound stuff in it. Where is it? Yeah, here, like there's some piano notes or whatever. That's probably not going to be actually very useful. You can't really hit sound without, I feel like, you almost can't hit sound, key sound without like a DAW like FL Studio. So what I would now do with this melody or whatever, if I wanted to key sound it, is, again, basically identify how many different notes or whatever I even need, and then just put them all in like a sequence like this or something. Like, I don't know, this is all the notes I need, and then I just export them as audio files. You could probably find out how to do that on your own. I don't really want to make like a tutorial on how to key sound right now. There's also probably more efficient ways of doing it than whatever I've done in the past. But let's just assume you got your samples now. Now you have to do the tedious thing of putting them for every single one in here down. Now, obviously, this is just a ton of nodes because I defined it as also taking into account the length and everything. Let's just do it, made a new project, import the MIDI piano, make it a bit easier on ourselves. Select that one, and then don't discriminate about lengths and velocities. Now we have a lot less nodes. Now I would just have to export an A5, an A6, blah, blah, samples for all of these. And then I could press this button. Let's maybe even see if I can get what I want in here. I don't know. Actually, imagine there's a folder with all the notes labeled. So now this sound file is going to be played whenever there's a MIDI file playing this note. And then imagine I assign every single one of these. There is a bunch of other settings down here about length patch, blah, blah, blah. Like basically MIDI settings. And like with the earlier one, you can reload the sample. If you imagine now that I assigned every single one of these, I could now then at the end press the export button and basically get what I want. A good thing about Hits on Studio is also that in the default editor, you could get only up to, I think, sample set index 99 or 99 or something. So if I go in here, I want to put this number really high. Oh, it just goes up to 100. Now, that's not the case with, I think maybe in the past people got around that with like .osu editing. Basically, what Hits on Studio can do is it can put the number to higher. I don't know how high, but let's say we go to the shadows, which will load a little bit. Let's see how long this will load. Okay, it did it. Cool. If we go further into the map, you see that I have sample set indexes that go above 100 here, like 137. Basically, HitSound Studio was able to do that in some way. Yeah. It just does it with exporting magic, I guess. Or probably also editing or something. Are there any questions about the key sounding stuff?
Nope.
I can maybe even show example of a thing I've made already with that. What the fuck is it? Do you remember, John, do you remember what that one Cyrus song is called? Oh, there it is.
Oh,
I know it. Yeah. So
subliminal
piano.
apocalyptic post-war divination.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the hit song project for that one. That's the piano rhythm. What's that? Oh, sorry. Oh, I think at some point this was actually no, I think this one should even be correct. It could be that I've actually forgotten a step about, like, I think you have in the editor to also set like what the actual rhythm of the piano is or something. Oh, let me listen what this sounds like. You can't hear that, but those are basically the piano notes. And then I had a separate diff that was just the rhythm of whatever the piano was doing. For two different sections. For some reason, I did that. So this is just a bunch of whistles in this diff with the rhythm, and then in the actual exported one, it's dun, 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 piano notes. Yeah, I'm thinking right now if I forgot anything about how to actually do the key sounding stuff. Oh, okay, okay, yeah, no, I think I remember something. So the thing at the bottom that you see, there's a bass beat map set, and that's the one with that has to be the rhythm, the piano rhythm. And then when you export it, I think in this case I actually made it more complicated than I had to, because I made two separate hit sound studio projects. I made one for just the key sounding, and then I made one. I made two for the key sounding, and then I made one for all the other stuff that I had, which was like, where is it? No, it's not here. What? Have I deleted my hit sound div? Maybe I did. I don't know. Whatever. Oh, bunch of hit sounds here. Blah 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 blah. So I think technically speaking, I could have done all of this inside just one hit sound studio project if I just now press the import MIDI button and stuff. Might have been a little bit less how to say, organized, or I don't know. It would have been a bunch more layers. It would have been really confusing. But might have been easier than putting it into separate projects. So I guess there would be some downsides, some upsides to it. I somehow still managed to like combine them together, so it's fine. What other option do we have down here? Was import layer stack. I don't know what it does. Oh, I don't know. We know what import hit sounds, storyboard hit sounds does. Yeah, import layer stack is the only one that I don't remember what it does. I think it's you can import like fully hit sounded maps stuff into hit sound preview helper. So this could be used for like if you wherever hit sounding a marathon or something, I believe. Let's quickly see. Let's just go to a random map. This one, sure. I don't know. Import layer stack. Press this button. Wait, what is this? Next coordinate of the stack. What is? Oh, it must be hit sound diff, maybe. Hit sound factors. So this is a hit sound diff. Let's see. Import layer stack. This map. What are the coordinates of this? 256. 192. Oh. Okay, so I see. I think so. This can, if I know, I could have gone to like a say a mania map or something. I could have gone to this one and basically been like, copy all the whistles in this diff, like only the whistles. This entire stack of, or this entire stack of the, whatever sound is on this thingy here, and put it into the map. So thing we had earlier with the imported sounds, that was all these different layers, which are like of stuff that appears 300 times, 500 times, etc. With that import layer stock option, you could import individual ones of these. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense, Jordan?
Yeah. So it's just one. You're just basically importing one key from the
Yeah,
mania.
or like
Or
one
like
sample.
Yeah, like one sample, or if it was like hit sounded in standard with different coordinates, just importing one like position where the hit sounds are.
Yeah. Okay, so now I think we could last thing to mention might be the one mistake you can make that's really dumb. But that happened to my mentor when I hit something for him, which is copying hit sounds from the mania diff to the default one. Let's see if I have a funny example. Actually, let's just use this map. Where is it? Oh, this one. So there's a hit sound diff for this one which is this is the mania hit sound diff. Looks like this, blah blah blah. You can't hear it. Obviously, then later exported this one to this diff, and that's the one that you're supposed to copy from, because it's a standard diff, etc. with stuff happening. But what he did instead is he took the hits on copier to this one. He went to the mania diff, where is it? There, and copied from it. I guess let's just see what happens when you do that. Wait, did I press the button already or no?
Yeah, you
I'll
did.
just do it again. I'll just do it again, don't care. I think in this case it might actually be useful to turn the stream on quickly, the O stream, just so you can hear that it's obviously wrong. I think actually if I go to Notepad now, it oh yeah, it put like the actual file names onto the individual nodes, like it did earlier, but it only works for some. So because you can hear most of it right now, it's just a bunch of whistles and soft hit normals. That's it. Wait, there was this one drum hit normal here for some reason. And then a clap on the slider end. Yeah, so it's just broken that way. It just doesn't work at all if you copy from the main div. I think, except for some small little things seem to work for some reason. Not the case if you copy from that hit sounding div. I'll press the button again. Wait, what? Oh, it could be that I have to like actually refresh it. Actually, it's just going to be applied already. What the fuck? Whatever, doesn't how it sounds when you copy from the standard hit sound div, which is correct, you know. Okay. So I guess that was the lecture. I think there's nothing more to say, really, unless anyone has any questions left about how to use Hits on Preview Helper, Hits on Studio, Geometry Dashboard, or just any of the other tools. Any questions about mapping tools in general? Was that a no? I didn't hear it.
I get these pop-ups like every now and then.
What kind of
I think they're
like
I have my
errors?
yeah I think my pathings in the preferences are like fucked.
Oh yeah, you should go
So they
into if you go into preferences, you can just like change them to the correct ones. So it'll try to like guess where your file paths are, but it can get it wrong if your game's not installed in like the default directory.
Yeah, it in fact recently broke for me because I got a new computer, a new SSD. I still had my old hard drive, but because it wasn't a boot drive, I had changed stuff around and stuff. Also, as I mentioned in like the first lecture on mapping tools, if you use the depending on what CFG you use, I believe it's impossible to use the tool offline. Or I don't know if I think it has something to do with this which CFG you have or something. And maybe even if you get a new drive or copy OS to a different drive, I think it can happen that you actually get a new CFG file, but it's not like the one that you're logged into and stuff. So you have to like check which one works if you have multiple ones. I think OS like creates a CFG file for every user on the on your computer, and then additional users that you like log into, I think.
Just make sure the file's not pointed to your multi account.
Well, actually, I think I mean, I don't think you get reported for multi-accounting if you have multiple CFGs, because it can just happen that legitimately, like a different person comes over to your PC and just like logs in as them. At
Yeah,
least,
sure. It was my brother.
imagine if they like banned you for doing that.